Hey guys, welcome to my third and final video on my Mac Pro killer build, which is right here. It's all finished. I've been enjoying it for some time and I've been taking it to work 5 days a week. It's been working awesome for me. You saw in that intro shot how I come in and I set it up. It goes really quickly, and that's step one in my video on the proof that this computer is portable. You can throw it in a backpack, take it with you wherever you need to go. I'm going to look at benchmarks and some other stuff to compare to the Mac Pro to show you how you can get a computer that is portable but at a much better value for your money compared to the Mac Pro. So first I'm going to go into some comparisons of the specs, and then a little bit we'll do benchmarks. So let's go check that out. Alright guys, so starting off here, I'm going to do a comparison with the base model Mac Pro, which is kind of the main competitor, just looking at the price wise. So we have $3,000 for the Mac Pro and under $3,000 for the Mac Pro Killer, and as time goes by the parts are going to get cheaper, so you'll do even better on the price. So we have a 3.4 GHz 6-core processor for the Mac Killer and a 3.74 core for the Mac Pro. So obviously the Mac Killer 6-core is going to be better. Now here's a huge difference. We have 32 gigs of RAM compared to 12 gigs of RAM. So almost 3 times as much and about the same speed. We have a Titan Black Edition with 6 gigs of video memory in the Titan, and we have two D300s. They have 2 gigabytes each, so it's a 4 total RAM. Next, my computer has a 120 gigabyte SSD for scratch files, a 250 gigabyte SSD for my OS, and then you have a 6 terabyte RAID 0, and that is for all the media files, storage, all that stuff. So the RAID 0 is actually fairly fast for a hard drive. We'll see those specs later. And on the Mac Pro, you have a 256 gig PCI SSD, which is really fast, but the difference in storage is really huge. And last, we're going to look at the size and weight. The Mac Pro is 6.6 inches by 9.9 inches high, and you're looking at 11 pounds. Now the Mac Pro Killer is 8.2 inches wide by 10.6 long and 14 high, so it is quite a difference right there. It's 20 pounds. So even though this computer is still portable, if it's in a backpack, it is about twice as much weight and about twice the size, and that's where the Mac Pro really shines. So let's kick this up a little bit and introduce the 6-core Mac Pro. Alright guys, so what does $1,000 more get you if you're going for a Mac Pro? So here we have the 6-core processor running at 3.5 gigahertz, which is 0.1 gigahertz more, or 100 megahertz more than the 6-core that comes with mine. You get 16 gigs of RAM instead of 12, so 4 more gigs, and you get the upgraded graphics, which now have a total of 6 gigs of video RAM, just like my Titan, and your storage stays the same. Alright guys, so throwing in the 8-core Mac Pro, I just want to say I customized this one to try to match the closest to what I have in my setup. So look at the price there, $7,300. Over 2 times, maybe 2.5 times as much price as what my setup cost me. So you're looking at an 8-core processor, which is better, but that clock speed goes down to 3 gigahertz to keep the heat under control inside that tiny little body. So your single core performance in regular day-to-day small programs is actually going to suffer, and it'll actually be faster on a 6-core or a 4-core. But in programs like video editing, things like that, you're going to benefit from those extra 2 cores. And you're looking at the RAM, we have 32 gigs of RAM. I just matched it up to what I have. As far as graphics, we have the dual D700s, and those have a whopping 12 gigs of RAM, twice as much as what I have in my setup. And last, we have 1 terabyte of PCI SSD storage. Now that's the max you can put in this computer. It doesn't really match up with my 6 terabytes in RAID 0 plus my 2 SSDs, but that's the most you can have internally, and it's faster than the memory or the storage that I have in my computer. Anything else, you're gonna have to have external storage with the Mac Pro. So just looking at the price, Man, that is a lot of money. All right, guys, so those are the specs on the computers, and now you'll see what this Mac Pro Killer can do compared to the Mac Pros. Now, I do want to let you guys know, everything, all the benchmarks I ran were just with this computer running exactly how I have it set up. I have a bunch of background programs running, antivirus, all sorts of stuff. I didn't disable anything, so there's nothing trying to push the scores up. It's exactly how it is. And on the Mac Pro scores, I went online and did research, and I found numbers that are averaging between what everybody else is getting. So they're not high numbers, they're not low numbers. I wanted to make sure the numbers are actually accurate to what the computers get. And some of the settings, when people did benchmarks, the dual graphics cards didn't work, stuff like that. So the ones that I chose, I made sure that everything was working really well. Now, I'm also doing a section of overclock, so you'll see the base computer and the configuration it comes, and then you'll see what the score gets with the overclock. Now, with the overclock, I didn't spend any time trying to get in there, fine-tune all the tiny settings. I'm not an overclock guru. What I did is I just took it from 3.4 to what it is stock, and then boosted it up to 4.4 just using the multiplier. It worked fine. I didn't try to push it any higher, just set it to there and ran the benchmarks. I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised on the performance of this computer. So let's go ahead and take a look at the scores. Alright guys, so I'm going to start out with Geekbench 364-bit single core. So you see here the Mac Pro Killer is 3,594, and you look at the 4-core Mac Pro is just slightly higher than that, and that's just because it's running at a 3.7 instead of a 3.4 gigahertz. You look at the 6-core equivalent from the Mac, it's slightly lower than what my score is. Even though it's running a little bit higher, maybe mine is more efficient. And then you have the 8-core, which is 3,278. Now that is because the 8-core is running at 3 gigahertz. So now let's check out what our Mac Pro Killer did overclocked. Alright guys, we have a whopping 4,092 score. That just crushes everything else that's on the board here. So overclocking at 4.4 just gives it a huge boost in single core performance. Moving on to the multi-core, this is the overall power of the processor. We have a 21.7 for the Mac Pro Killer compared to 13,000 for the 4-core. The same amount of money invested, way more power out of the Mac Pro Killer. Comparing it to the 6-core, which is $1,000 more, that one has a 19.5, so still more powerful than that. And the 8-core comes in at 26,000, which is a really high performance. Now let's see what our overclocked Mac Pro Killer gets. Alright, 24,766. That is an amazing score with almost no effort to overclock this computer. It's almost reaching out, touching that 26,000 score of the 8-core Mac Pro for way less money. I'm so impressed with the results here. Moving on to Cinebench R15-CPU test, we have a score of 1041 compared to 662 at the same price level of a Mac Pro. So that is a phenomenal amount of difference of power that we have with the Mac Pro Killer. If you're looking at the 6-core, which is $1,000 more, that one's getting close to what we have at 961, and your 8-core is running 1223 at $7,300, which is a great score. But let's see what our Mac Pro Killer overclocked will get. Wow, alright, we have 1,207 score on Cinebench R15-CPU. That is almost identical to the 8-core Mac Pro. All we had to do is about take a minute, put a little bit of effort, just change a number, and our performance numbers are phenomenal. You have 2.5 times less money, and your score right there is amazing. It's just phenomenal. I'm so happy with this score. Now we're gonna run the GPU test, and we have a score of 95.55 frames per second on the Mac Pro Killer compared to the 4-core D300s that has a 76.5, the 6-core D500s have a 80, and the 8-core Mac Pro has 108.8 with your D700 graphics cards. So it's a pretty respectable amount right there. You definitely have a great frame rate on the Titan, and the 8-core Mac Pro has one a lot better than that. Now this, even though it's a GPU test, it's still quite a bit CPU bound. I know this because of what the overclock score that I got. So let's go ahead and pop that up there. 128.35. That is absolutely awesome. I'm really happy with the result. Alright guys, so I also wanted to mention storage, because there is quite a difference compared the Mac Pro Killer to the Apple Mac Pros. Now the Apple Mac Pros, you get a single PCI SSD. That is a very fast SSD. You're looking at about an average of 875 read and write. They fluctuate a little bit, but that's about what everybody is getting. You get 256 gig on the 3000 or the 4000 model. For the 7300, I upped that to a 1 terabyte. Compared to my setup is I chose to have two different SSDs, 120 for scratch files for video editing and a 250 for my operating system programs, stuff like that. Now the setup that I chose with that is just because it's more efficient with Premiere, because I do mainly video editing. I could have got two 250 gig SSDs, ran them in RAID 0, and got to similar performance numbers of what the PCI SSDs are getting inside the Mac Pro, but this way it's just more efficient for me. Now I also have the 3 terabytes hard drives ran in RAID 0, and with those I'm getting 350 megabytes per second, which is really good for just 2 hard drives that have 6 terabytes total storage that are inside the case, not external storage like you have to use with the Mac Pro. And those numbers are good enough to store all my videos and be able to keep up with the demand when I'm video editing. So I am just very happy with the setup, and it's working really awesome for me. And I know a lot of you guys are saying, why'd you do RAID 0? You're going to lose all your files. The next thing I want to mention is my backup system for this. So every night when I bring my computer, plug it in at home, I have a home backup computer, which is almost like a server, plus my wife uses that computer. Now in there I have 6 3 terabyte the Seagate drive, same ones I have in the Mac Pro Killer. Those are ran in RAID 5, which splits up all the data, so if one of those hard drives goes bad, I toss another one in there, and I don't lose any of my data. So if any issue I have with a 6 terabyte RAID 0, I'll have a backup there. Now it's also supplemented by a backup service called Backblaze. $3.96 per month. You have unlimited online backup, so that home backup computer gets backed up automatically to the internet, and I will never have to worry about my data. If something happens, I'll have all my important files there and I can retrieve them. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, I have a link in the description. You guys can go check out that website. It's an awesome service. Make sure you guys have some form of backup, or even better, 2 different forms of backup like I have set up here. You really don't want to be losing any of your stuff, even if you don't have a business to run like I have, you know, your family photos, videos, all that stuff. You really want to make sure you have that safe. You don't want to lose it all, and you're just going to be regretting that for the rest of your life. So go check out Backblaze, or get another type of setup to make sure your stuff is safe. Alright guys, so I know a lot of you have been asking me to do some gaming benchmarks, and I did used to play games. I honestly don't have time with working full-time, trying to do business, trying to get these YouTube videos out, and trying to still spend some time with my family. So what I did is I went online and I looked at, if I can pronounce it right, Tech. They did a comparison between a 6-core, slightly overclocked, similar to what I have computer, with the 780 Ti, which is basically what my Titan is, just with less RAM. And they compared it to a 12-core Mac Pro running the D700, which is the highest graphics in some games. So I'm gonna just go ahead and show you a couple of slides that they have, how this computer, a 6-core, slightly overclocked, with a Titan, equivalent, the 780 Ti, compares to a top-of-the-line 12-core Mac Pro with a D700s, and I think you'll also be pleasantly surprised. Alright guys, so all the games I tested were on the highest settings and at 2560 by 1440p. Starting off, we have Battlefield 3. Now, if you can see, the 780 Ti has a 78.3 frames per second, and the dual D700s have a 77.8. That's pretty much the same identical score. So if everything is working perfectly, like in this example, where your crossfire is scaling well and the game takes good advantage of the crossfire, you can get really good results. So you're pretty much on par with the Titan that's in my build compared to the D700s in a top of the line. Now, of course, if you have the 500 or the D300s, your performance is going to be lower than what I have in my computer for $3,000. Alright, so here we have BioShock Infinite, and here is an example of the D700, once again, right up there at the 780 Ti, same level. Now you see at the bottom we have the D700s once again, and that says OS X. So if you're running this game on the Apple operating system that doesn't use the crossfire for BioShock Infinite, it doesn't work. Now what they did is they installed Windows on it and did some drivers, some type of stuff to get it running, and then it's scaling and doing the same job as the Titan or the 780 Ti equivalent. But when it doesn't work, you see there, you lose about half your performance, and it has the 33 running on a single card. Alright guys, so moving on to Company of Heroes 2. As you see here, the frame rate's 24.5 for the D700s and 38.3 for the 780 Ti. Now this is an example typically where a game either doesn't use the crossfire really well, which is I think what happened here. Even though it recognizes that it's in crossfire, still the game doesn't scale well. This is why it's always better to have a single, more powerful card than two cards in either crossfire or SLI. Alright guys, so I have the last one here. It's Metro Last Light. We have 59.1 for the 780 Ti and 42 frames per second for the D700s in Crossfire. So pretty much the moral of the story here is it's always better to grab a single graphics card that's more powerful than two weaker graphics cards, because you're not always going to have good compatibility. It's not always going to work out with drivers, and some games just don't work very efficiently. They don't scale very well. So I think you could tell that it's definitely better to go with a Windows system with like a Titan, like what I built, compared to even a 12-core D700 setup like they're showing here on AnandTech. Alright guys, next I'm going to go over temps and how loud this computer is. Now for how loud it is, I don't have like a meter to check and tell you guys exact decibels or anything like that. But right here you can hear I'm just talking, normal voice is being recorded like it usually is, and I'll just stop talking, see if you guys can hear anything. Alright, I'm not sure exactly what you heard, but that's how loud it is just being a couple feet away from the computer. And right now it is in the overclocked 4.4 gigahertz, so I'm not sure if that's any louder than it typically is without being overclocked. But what I can say is at idle, I definitely do hear it, but it's not loud, it's not annoying, anything like that. This is actually the quietest computer that I've had out of my 10 builds that I've put together. Usually those have a lot more fans. This one has less fans, and they're all quieter, more kind of efficient fans. Now, when I was exporting videos, not being overclocked, just on stock, it was about as loud as my Alienware or my MSI GS70 laptops that I've had in the past, which you definitely do hear, but it's not really too annoying or kind of like a loud whine type sound. And then being overclocked, it is quite a bit louder. It's nothing that you couldn't get over. Typically I'm listening to music, doing stuff like that. But being overclocked, I think if you had this in a bigger case, it'd be a little bit quieter, maybe with some better cooling. But so far, I'm really happy with the noise level. And for such a small case, I'm actually happy with the temps as well. I have some slides to show you to go over. Let's go check those out. Alright guys, so I'm using a program called Specky Now this just shows all the specs of your system along with your temps. This is a slide with my idle temps, and this is both for non-overclocked and overclocked because the CPU will scale the speed it runs at down. So idle, they say roughly about the same, 29 degrees Celsius for idle and 31 for the GTX Titan, and then you can see all the other temps that are inside my system. And the way I wanted to do these temp overviews is to show you guys what the temperatures are when I'm exporting a video, because I don't do any gaming or anything else. Mainly I'm working on video editing. So this is just a screen grab from a music video that I did, and this is what I'll be basing my temps off of, exporting this video, which has a lot of clips, a lot of transitions, a lot of added effects, denoiser, a bunch of stuff in there, so it does push the computer pretty hard. So starting out, this is a frame grab here, doing just the regular export without overclocking, and I'll bring it in a little bit closer here. So I'm running 50 degrees Celsius on the processor, and I have 64 degrees Celsius on the Titan Black Edition. You guys can see the other temps in there. So roughly it stayed around here. Sometimes it dipped down to 45 degrees, sometimes it'd go up to 51, 52, but this is generally what I got exporting this music video without overclocking. So if we move to overclocking, I added on a little task manager there, so you can see the CPU is running at 4.46 gigahertz, and I'll move in closer. We have 72 degrees Celsius for the processor and 46 degrees for the Titan Black Edition. So the Titan got a little bit warmer, not too much, but the CPU did get a little bit warmer, quite a bit warmer there, by 22 degrees. So it's running at 72. It would go up a little bit, it would go down a bit, just like it did before it was overclocked. I'm okay with it being this warm. I know some of you guys might not be okay with it. I understand that the case is very small. There's only 3 total fans running in there, 2 just for the radiator. It doesn't have very good airflow, but I'm not expecting this processor to last 5-10 years or something like that. I know maybe a year is going to go by and there's going to be an 8 core out, and I'm going to go ahead and upgrade to that, so it's not a big deal. I am going to be running it at 4.46, and I'm okay with these temps. If you guys want to tell me that it's horrible or something like that having it this warm, you can write that in the description below. So these are the temps for this system. Alright guys, so you saw the impressive results, the benchmarks, especially with the computer being overclocked, but I want to give some final thoughts on when is it worth getting a Mac Pro over a system like this. Now, you know, bang for the buck, definitely this system is worth it, but I would say if money is not an option, if your business is going well already, or you have a lot of money, and you don't mind spending that extra money, go with the Mac Pro. I would if I could personally, if I can spend $6,000 instead of $3,000. Now, the other time it might be worth it if you're already using Apple hardware, you're using Final Cut 10 for video editing. That's another big plus with the Mac Pro. Even though the specs are lower, Apple optimized Final Cut 10 to work really, really efficiently with those dual graphics cards, and you might actually get better performance using that instead of using a system like this, let's say with Premiere, or maybe even making a Hackintosh and using Final Cut 10. Now, if you're trying to get the Mac Pro to work with Premiere or with Adobe software, I think it will get a lot more benefit using this setup. But if you are using Final Cut 10, it'd probably be a better bet to go with the Mac Pro. So those are the 2 times maybe you would rather go with the Mac Pro, or if it's portability is super, super critical to you. If 10 pounds instead of 20 pounds or 11 pounds for the Mac Pro makes a world of a difference for you, there you go, that's another reason. But those are all kind of a small group of people that the Mac Pro is better for. Generally, this setup works really, really well. So I just want to thank all you guys for watching this series of videos. I know some of you guys reached out and contacted me, asked me questions. I even had Julian, a guy also from YouTube, even send me an email, and he did a similar build like this. I'll throw in some pictures above. And instead of doing a 6-core, he did a 4-core with a 770, and he actually put a fan in the bottom. You'll see a photo, and he did a really good portable setup as well. So you guys, if you like this case, if you like a setup like this, go for it. It's awesome. Once again, all the links are in the description. if you guys want to buy the parts. And if you do use an Amazon link, that just supports the channel. If you guys buy anything off Amazon, if you click one of my links, it just gives a small kickback, and that helps the channel. So if you guys want to do that, if you're thankful for the videos, that's an option for you guys. I just want to thank all you guys for watching, and if you're interested in seeing more videos, maybe some more electronics, and definitely a big focus on video content creation, gear, stuff like that, subscribe to my channel, and just thank you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you later.